Strange passage. The cave system grew stranger the deeper they went. It wasn't simply the absence of sound, though that too was unnatural. Caves were rarely truly silent. Even far from the surface, there was usually something. The squeak of disturbed bats, the quick skitter of cave crickets, the occasional wing beat in the dark. Even without life, you could count on water. The slow plink of droplets into mineral pools, echoing like a metronome. Here, there was nothing. Even their own movements seemed swallowed. Their boots scraped softly through mineral grit. But the sound faded before the next step. The stillness pressed close around them, heavy and absolute, until even the faint rasp of their breathing felt
we feel it shift. The air grows thin. The earth will lift. What once held fast begins to swing. The laws we trust begin to stray.
Their ears strained for noise that never came. The passage narrowed into a tunnel that felt less carved than shaped. The walls rose in slow vertical waves, as though the stone had once moved and then hardened mid-motion. The floor followed the same pattern, lifting and falling beneath their steps in long, uneven swells that forced them to adjust their footing constantly. It wasn't steep, but it was disorienting, the subtle shifts in angle enough to unsettle balance and rhythm alike. The tunnel didn't simply lead them forward, it drew them down. Each turn seemed to carry them deeper than the last, the descent gradual but undeniable, spiraling through bends that never fully revealed what lay ahead. Oni felt it first in his ears, a quiet pressure building as they moved, then in the weight of the air itself, cooler, denser, as though the mountain were closing around them. The further they went, the less the passage felt like part of a cave, and the more it felt like something designed. They followed the main tunnel, though it no longer felt like a single path. Side passages branched away in every direction, some narrow, others wide enough to swallow their light entirely. Only lost any sense of how long they had been walking. Time stretched in the sameness of stone and silence, measured only by the rhythm of their steps and the slow shift of air against their skin. The tunnel finally drew them towards a massive natural arch, its span rising high above them, before narrowing abruptly, as if the mountain itself had constricted the passage into a final threshold. Beyond it, the space opened. The chamber was enormous. Oni stopped without meaning to, his breath catching as his light swept outward and failed to find an immediate boundary. The beam stretched across open space before finally touching the far wall, softened by distance, swallowed by scale. Above them, the ceiling arched high and smooth, a continuous dome of stone without fracture or formation, no stalactites, no breaks, just a single sweeping surface that felt less like something carved and more like something formed in one motion. Carvings covered the walls. Marja moved first, drawn towards the nearest section as if pulled by instinct. Her light settled over a band of figures arranged in a wide circle. Oni followed, his eyes narrowing as the shapes resolved into something more deliberate. Human forms, not standing, not grounded. Several of them hung above the circle, their limbs angled downward, their bodies suspended in the empty space above the others. Oni leaned closer, his skepticism tightening his voice. Are they swimmers? Marja tilted her head, studying the proportions, the absence of any base or support. Levitating, she said. There's no iconography to suggest flight. No wings, no motion, no indication of ascent. They're not moving. Oni exhaled slowly, his eyes still on the figures. Just floating. Just impossible, he added, quieter now. Marja turned slightly, her expression sharpening in the halo of her lamp. Impossible to you? From farther along the wall, Batu gave a low chuckle. He was crouched near another set of carvings, his broad frame blending into the shadows like part of the rock itself. "Don't start," he said. "I haven't eaten yet." The grin in his voice softened the edge before it could form. Oni ignored him. Stepping closer to the wall, the silence here felt heavier, as though even sound hesitated to linger against the images. "You can't just jump to conclusions every time something doesn't fit," he said. "We need context." "I am using context," Marjorie replied without looking away. "You think this is decoration? These are systems of belief, ritual records. People don't carve something like this without meaning." "That's generous." "It's informed," she said, finally turning towards him. "Better than assuming they didn't understand what they were seeing." Batu straightened, brushing dust from his hands. "If Batu can humbly suggest," he said, "you should name your joint podcast Jumping to Conclusions." The moment broke. Marge's mouth curved despite herself. Only let out a breath that almost passed for a laugh. "Fine," she said. "We document. No assumptions yet." They moved deeper into the chamber. The carvings continued, wrapping along the walls in a slow, continuous sequence. Not random, not isolated. A progression. Figures repeated. Patterns echoed. Shapes reappeared at measured intervals, arranged with a precision that suggested structure rather than expression. Marja studied them carefully, her eyes moving from one section to the next, tracking the repetition. This wasn't art. It was organization. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to a season she had spent in Anatolia, standing among the pillars of Göbekli Tepe. Those carvings had once been dismissed the same way, primitive, symbolic, decorative. Now they were understood as something else entirely, the work of people who planned, measured, and constructed with intent long before anyone believed they could. Primitive, she had learned, was only just a placeholder for ignorance. She looked again at the figures before her, the spacing, the alignment, the repetition. "Ritual," she said quietly, "not narrative." Oni glanced toward her. "Aspirational?" "Possibly," she said. "Or participatory. Something maybe they did." Batu's voice came from behind them. "They're on the floor, too." They turned. The carvings spread across the chamber floor. Not scattered markings, not decoration. Structure. They radiated outward from the center in layered concentric formations, lines intersecting, curving, repeating with a precision that resisted immediate interpretation. Some were rigid, geometric. Others flowed, looping back on themselves as though capturing motion in a fixed form. Oni bent down, brushing a thin layer of dust from one of the grooves. The edges were worn smooth, not by time, by contact. "These weren't symbolic," Marja said, stepping carefully into the pattern. "They were used." Oni looked up. "Used how?" She moved through the lines, her light tracing the spacing between positions. "Placement," she said. "These are positions. People stood here." Oni followed the pattern outward, seeing it now. The consistency, the spacing, the repetition across the entire floor. Not random. Designed. Designed for bodies. At the center of the chamber, the pattern broke. What had once been a continuous field of carved stone had been forced apart. The geometry split and lifted as something beneath it had grown upward over time. Large sections of the floor had fractured along their own lines, slabs tilted and displaced, their edges no longer aligning with the surrounding patterns. The carvings that remained intact curved towards the disruption, their symmetry interrupted as if design itself had been pushed aside. The formation rose from that break. It was not a single crystal, not a towering spire, but a dense, interwoven mass of charoite that had forced its way through the floor in overlapping growths. Fibrous bands of deep violet twisted upward in layered plates, some smooth, others faceted, where natural planes had formed under pressure. The surface caught their light unevenly, shifting from muted purple to a richer, almost luminous depth where the structure tightened. Oni stepped closer, careful now, his boots finding stable ground beneath the displaced slabs. He looked at the base, angling his lamp across the surface. The distortion was there again, subtle but unmistakable. Light bending inside the stone, as though something within it resisted the path it should have taken. "Same structure," he said quietly. Marja moved beside him, already opening her case. "More developed," she replied, studying the surface. "The growth planes are tighter, more ordered." Batu circled once around the outer edge of the formation, saying nothing, his eyes moving between the broken floor and the rising mass at its center. The shift in his posture remained not tense, but aware. As if he understood, they were standing too close to something that demanded distance.
In violet veins, the silence sings, a force unfastens buried things. No hand to guide, no voice to warn, yet something bends